Chairman. I'd like to ask the Minister for Social Protection if she will reconsider the criteria for fuel allowance and allow some latitude in the application criteria for the allowance. For example, for persons who apply for the job seekers or supplementary welfare allowance should not have to wait for 12 months to be accepted for fuel allowance. And if persons who are in this benefit will be included, and will he consider the application criteria for fuel allowance, and if the latitude in relation to the same be given to ongoing fuel because of the ongoing fuel crisis in Ireland?
Thank you, Deputy, for raising this issue. Fuel allowance is paid to social welfare recipients such as pensioners, people with disabilities, lone parents and the long-term unemployed in recognition of the fact that they have a long-term financial dependence on a social welfare payment for all or most of their income. It is not paid to people such as people in receipt of illness benefit who have an attachment to the labour market and who are in receipt of short-term welfare supports. Fuel allowance can only be paid if the qualifying criteria as outlined in the scheme guidelines are met. Fuel allowance cannot be paid on a discretionary basis. As part of Budget 2022, I announced a number of expansions to the eligibility criteria for the fuel allowance payment. The weekly means threshold for the fuel allowance scheme was increased by €20 to €120 above the appropriate rate of contributory state pension, representing a 20% increase in the threshold, which enables more people to qualify for this support. The €120 allowable means limit is significantly more than the €33 weekly rate of fuel allowance. With effect from September 2022, the qualifying period for job seekers and supplementary welfare allowance recipients to be in a position to access the fuel allowance payment will be reduced from 15 to 12 months. The Government has therefore implemented significant expansions in relation to fuel allowance through Budget 2022. Any decision to further expand the qualifying criteria of the fuel allowance payment in the manner outlined by the Deputy would have significant cost implications for the scheme and could only be considered while taking account of the overall budgetary context and the availability of financial resources. Under the Supplementary Welfare Allowance Scheme, exceptional needs payments may be made to help meet an essential once-off cost which people are unable to meet out of their own resources, and this may include exceptional heating costs, and decisions on such payments are made on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And you say that the fuel allowance is there for many pensioners, but it's also not there for many more pensioners. And I know that, sorry, it's not there for many more pensioners because I know they come into my clinics, and probably your own the same as everybody else, every other TD here, and they might be €1 or €2 above the criteria. And it's a terrible, unfair situation. I have a situation where there's a lady with cancer in West Cork with an illness benefit. She cannot afford to heat her home. It's a sight to God to think that we're in this day and age that she is on an illness benefit because of her illness and she cannot heat her home. And what about the pensioners who come to me, as I say, who are slightly above the fuel allowance? Surely there has to be some latitude for people who are sitting in their cold homes as we speak. And most of these people are elderly, and some of them are very, very ill and very sick. And a lot of people have mortgages, rents, loans. It's not, nothing is taken into account other than their income. And their income, sometimes their outgoings far exceeds their incomings, and I appreciate, Minister, that there be some understanding of that.
Thank you, Deputy. Just to say that by increasing the threshold, by increasing the threshold over of 100 to 120 over the contributory pension, I brought it up by another 20, as I said, euros in the last budget. And that has benefited more people. There's over 400,000 families have benefited from the fuel allowance. So, as I said, we increased the means test. And, deputies, when you have criteria, unfortunately, there's going to be those who fall each side of it. And that's why if somebody is in really need of assistance, that they should go to the local community welfare officer. And that's what they're there for. They're there to help people who are in difficulty, and you have the essential needs payment, or you have the urgent needs payment, and they can look for assistance there. And I think that anybody that's experiencing difficulty, like you said, should go to the community welfare officer.
Thank you, Minister. But you know, well, everybody should welcome the threshold being raised, and I welcome that too. But remember, last week the coal went up about €7 a bag. For most people, they can't afford it any longer. The same with the home heating. So we have a crisis situation in this country with the price of fuel, and people are turning to the fuel allowance as their only option to be able to heat their home. And sadly, it's not happening. And we have to look at the criteria. The criteria has to change, and their expenses has to be taken into account. And I plead with you, Minister, to look at that. And while I have the floor, I would also like to mention to you, as Minister for Rural Affairs, Dursey Island, 9 days away from no transport to that island, which is a sad situation. The people of the island and the people that have cattle there find themselves. In 1969, I've been pleading with you, you've been pointing the finger at the council has been pointing the finger at you, that people are falling in the middle in Dursey Island. It is a scandalous situation we face. It's a big issue for us, for me next week, of course, here in the Dáil, but I'd appreciate maybe you'd be able to talk on that if you had the chance. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Deputy. Just to say that we have increased the fuel allowance. In fact, when I looked at it last year, the fuel allowance was €784 for the period of the fuel allowance. This year it's €1,049, and then when you add on the €200 energy credit and you compare that to last year, there's actually a 60% increase in the fuel allowance. And I know things aren't easy for people, but government is doing everything that we can to try and assist, but we just can't cover all of these costs that are not just in Ireland. It's right across the globe, and we know the challenges we're facing because of the war in Ukraine. Because you must remember, we came out of Brexit, and then we came out of a pandemic. So these things have been compounded, and I know it's not easy for people, but go to the community welfare officer. They're there. There was 42 million paid out on that last year. There's no cap on it. The money's available. And can I just, with your indulgence, Chair, just to mention Dursey Island, and I do understand the difficulties around Dursey Island, can I just say that not one proposal has come to me from Cork County Council. I have written to them and I've said to them, you're the guys, they're the people that are, they have to cease the cable car, they have to cease it going over and back because of difficulties with it. But I said to them clearly, come back with proposals. So the ball is in the court of Cork County Council. Not one proposal they came to me with. So I've written back to them and asked them for their proposals and to engage with my officials. And I hope to do that.